good, ma'am?
Wait for the presentation to come up before we get started. You can stop me. All right, so this item has to do with the initiation of a referendum for a 1% optional sales tax that's solely for school capital. We as a locality and other localities across the state have been lobbying the General Assembly to allow the localities to put this issue back into our local citizens' hands. So they finally did that, and we're presenting that to you today. The state code sections that authorize this would be 58.1605, 58.1606.1, 24.2-684, and 58.1-611.1. These statutory provisions, this tax can only be implemented following approval by referendum. So the board is not considering implementing this tax today. You are only considering authorizing the referendum, which would then put this question to the voters. So following approval by referendum, counties may levy a general retail sales tax at a rate not to exceed 1% to provide revenue solely for construction and major renovation of schools serving the county. Tax levy shall not be levied on food purchased for human consumption or essential personal hygiene products as defined by State Code Section 58.1-611.1. Revenues from this tax shall not be used for repayment of existing indebtedness authorized by the county for public school capital projects that began or were completed prior to the imposition of this tax. So no funds from this tax could be used for the current renovation project that's already in process. Any such tax approved by referendum, again by the voters of the locality, and then imposed by the county shall expire on the later of the capital projects for the construction or renovation of schools are to be financed by bonds or loans on the date by which the said bonds or loans shall be repaid. Or two, if the capital projects for the construction or renovation of schools are not to be financed by bonds or loans on or before July 14th, 2046. Basically in 20 years after adoption of the resolution to initiate the referendum. Our proposed referendum language would be this right here. It says, shall Nelson County, Virginia be authorized to levy a general retail sales tax at a rate not to exceed 1%, with revenues to be used solely for capital projects for new construction or major renovation of schools serving Nelson County, Virginia, including related bonds and loan financing costs, and with the tax expiring on July 14th, 2046. And voters would answer yes or no. Some information, additional information related to this tax. Once again, the funds from the tax would be solely for school construction and renovation. They would not be available for general fund use. They would be collected by the state and held in a designated account until they are remitted to the county on a monthly basis. These funds would not be commingled with the existing 1% sales and use tax within the general fund. It would go into and be tracked in a designated budget account once remitted to the county by the state. Again, these funds can only be used for construction or renovation of schools, including associated indebtedness for projects that begin following the imposition of the tax. As we all are aware, our existing schools are aging, and evolving needs of students and emerging technologies will necessitate building upgrades and renovations. Rockfish River Elementary School was built in 1999. It's 27 years old and is currently has the original, I believe, HVAC system that is starting to fail. Ty River Elementary School was built in 1995. It's 31 years old. And I believe that one has the building envelope issue that has not been addressed yet. Nelson Middle School, the addition to the NCHS complex was built in 2003. That's 23 years old now. Nelson County High School has various age wings, 1955, 1970, 2003, and then currently in 2026, we're undergoing mechanical, electrical, plumbing, or MEP upgrades and minor renovation. And again, we would not be able to use any of the new sales tax for this project. But that's not even, I mean, that's doing mostly things that you can't see at the high school. So financial data, yes, sir.
Vocational wing was 1970. Wow.
Yes.
Hmm.
Some financial data related to this tax. Currently in FY26, we have a 1% sales tax already in place. And as of June 30th, 2026, we collected $2,438,360. The estimated 1% sales tax collected from this new tax with exclusions of 21.3%, which would be a reduction for certain food and beverage and hygiene sales. Davenport provided us with this number. It's based on a 10-year average. So the estimated collections with that reduction would be $1,919,006. We consulted the Virginia Tourism Corporation. They noted the conservative estimate share paid by visitors of this tax would be about 22%, and that being conservative because that was kind of a statewide number that they provided, whereas Nelson has a pretty robust tourism industry, so we may see, a higher percentage actually paid by visitors. If you look at the 1.9 million, the equivalent real property tax in cents is about 5 cents. That's using the value of the real property tax at $418,342 dollars per penny. And also from Davenport, they noted that with strategic debt structuring and or expected annual growth in tax revenue, not counting those things, our estimated additional 20-year borrowing ability at 5% would be about $24 million. Also, some fiscal and community impact considerations of the tax itself. Again, this tax is not being proposed to be implemented by the board today. It would be up to the voters in a referendum should the board implement the resolution proposed. This tax could diversify revenue streams. It would reduce reliance on property taxes by shifting some of the financial burden to consumer spending. It would capture non-resident dollars from out-of-town visitors, commuters, and tourists who contribute to the local tax. It could enhance our borrowing capacity by establishing a predictable, dedicated revenue stream to bolster borrowing ability and enhance lending confidence. It retains local control, keeps 100% of the collected revenue within the county, guarantees accountability because the revenues are locked in legally into the specific voter-approved purpose of school construction and renovation, relieves some pressure on property taxes to fund school capital needs by enabling the county to capture consumer spending dollars rather than relying primarily on property taxes to fund school capital needs. Could spur economic development because these funds could provide visible community improvements to schools that can contribute to attracting new businesses. And it's a relatively minimal impact to consumers, an additional $1 for every $100 purchased. So timetable for potential imposition of the tax if the Board of Supervisors initiates the voter referendum is as follows. Up to and including August 13th, the Board of Supervisors could adopt a resolution requesting that a referendum for the new school sales tax be held during the next general election on November 3rd. The 20-year sunset date is specified by the legislation for the new school sales tax is linked to the date on which this resolution is adopted. So if it's adopted today, it would be in place through July 14th, 2046. August 14th, 2026 would be the deadline for the judge to enter a court order for referendum on the November 3rd, 2026 ballot. November 3rd, 2026, the referendum for the new school sales tax will be held. And then if it were voter approved, in late November or early December 2026, the Board of Supervisors would adopt an ordinance enacting the new school sales tax. On or about May 1st, 2027, the new school sales tax becomes effective on the first day of the month. That is at least 120 days after the ordinance adoption. So based on the above timetable, the conservative estimate of revenues would be over approximately 19 years, beginning in FY 28. So next steps, happy to answer any questions that I can right now. This is a fairly, recent development, and everyone's still trying to figure out exactly what it means. But if you favorably consider the resolution 2026-58, initiating the referendum, and again, adoption of the resolution only enables the voters of Nelson County to decide whether to have the optional 1% sales tax. If the resolution is adopted tonight, we will send the appropriate paperwork to the county clerk. They deem it to be in order for processing, and then they would publish notices of the referendum. And in conjunction, we would send copies of the paperwork and resolution to the registrar and electoral board of the county. So I knew that was a lot. Happy to answer any questions that I can.
Any questions for Candy? I thought that was pretty straightforward.
Yep. Madam Chair, I think this is a good question to present before the constituents of Nelson. This is a time where they can choose whether this is a positive or not. I think we should go ahead and give them the option. This board does not need to take a position in the affirmative or in the negative. Board members, do what you want. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution R 2026-58 as presented.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we will roll call vote this one.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford,
Yes.
Mr. Linehan,
No.
Dr. Lee.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, we did, so EMS generator upgrade project.
The one-time employee bonus.
Oh,
Yes.
cheesy Pete.
Trillions.
Poor Davenport got put at the bottom.
Let's put about that one. They'll be.
Oh, shit.
Ordinance O 2026-02 pursuant to Virginia Code Section 15.2-1508 provides for the payment of monetary bonuses to the county's officers and employees. The 2026 General Assembly approved funding to support a 2% bonus for all Department of Social Services employees, constitutional officers, regional jail superintendents, and their compensation for funded full-time permanent employees on June 1st, 2026. During the county's FY 27 budget work sessions, consideration for the greater of a 2% or $1,500 bonus was granted to all county department full-time employees, as well as a $500 bonus for all regular part-time employees. This was included in the FY 27 budget, which went to public hearing on May 12th and was passed on June 9th. To be eligible for the bonus, employees must have been employed by the county on June 1st, 2026, and still employed as of the ordinance adoption date. The bonus will be based on the employee status, whether full-time or part-time, as of June 1st, and is anticipated to be paid with the July 31st regular payroll. So there's been no change to this. It was already in the budget.
Madam Chair,
Mhm.
if there's no discussion, I'm prepared to make a motion.
Okay,
Chair, I move we approve ordinance O 2026-02 as presented.
Second.
have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford,
Yes.
Mr. Linehan,
Yes.
Dr. Lee.
Yes. All right. Now EMS generator upgrade.
presentation on this one. Last month in my county administrator's report, I provided a pretty extensive, review of the issues that our, contractor hired to do our generator replacement at, all of our, EMS agencies, that being Livingston Fire Department, Ivy River Volunteer Fire Department, Clobber Volunteer Fire Department, Rockfish Valley Volunteer Fire Department, Montebello Volunteer Fire Department, Roseland Rescue Squad, and Nelson EMS. They have now provided us with that proposal, and that proposal, would provide the following at each site: a stamped as-built one-line diagram, stamped recommended construction one-line diagrams with load shedding, indicated, short circuit and available fault, current analysis report with equipment AIC rating verifications, selected coordination study with findings and recommendations, utility service capacity verification, transfer switch evaluations, conductor sizing evaluation reports with upsizing recommendations, labeled overcurrent devices and switch rating schedule, load calculation report, which would include connected load, demand load, real-time emitter data, generator utilization percentage, and available capacity. Also generator runtime analysis at 25, 50, and 100% loads with site-specific propane tank capacities and usable capacity calculations, load shedding logic narrative, required where load shedding is employed or recommended, a 3-level compliance and functionality assessment at levels 1, 2, and 3 with prioritized recommendations, existing panel schedule for each panel in the scope. Also, existing circuit identifications would be verified where possible. Circuits with inaccurate, missing, or unclear labeling may require breaker cycling, amperage measurements, and field investigation. Circuits determined to be inactive would be labeled as spares. And then lastly, generator sizing verification reports for Fogger and Rockfish, and then technical documentation supporting additional FEMA funding letter for the grant. So their proposed cost to do all this is $19,600. And we would ask for favorable consideration of resolution 2026-60.
This is brought up before council. This is good
Yes.
for you. Good.
Yes. I mean, we gotta get them working. Unless there's any discussion, Madam Chair, I make a motion that we adopt resolution R 2026-60, approval of electrical engineering assessment and remediation proposal for EMN construction as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I have a question. Is there a possibility that FEMA will pay for this eventually too?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, that would be.
love that. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, we can roll call vote this, I guess.
Mr. Rutherford.
Yes.
Mr. Linehan.
Yes.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
Mr. Farr.
Yes.
Dr. Lee.
Yes.
Thank you.
Renewal of Davenport Financial Advisory Agreement.
So our last contract with Davenport, was March 9th, 2021, so it's time to renew that contract. We have done so using cooperative procurement through Dinwiddie County, Virginia's contract with Davenport. We propose to do that again. We find that the company's services have been very effective in assisting the county over the years to undertake and complete capital improvement projects and also financial analysis and planning. So prior to proceeding with our Larkin property financing, we do need to update this agreement with Davenport and renew that. So let's see, the cooperative procurement contract with Dinwiddie was effective August 22nd, 2025. And we recommend renewing this agreement on an as-needed hourly basis, as was the case with our previous contract with Davenport. So, rather than doing an annual retainer, we're recommending that we just, pay on an as-needed basis based on the hourly fees that are attached with the contract.
Any questions for Candy?
How long we been with them?
It's 21.
Wow.
Or longer than that, really.
Longer than that,
Yeah.
yes.
Longer
Yeah, it's just the last contract.
Yeah.
Went to 21.
We've worked, I mean, not me personally, but we've worked with the county for over 20 years.
Yeah, since I've.
So we're a returning
purchased.
customer, we get a break?
I don't know if we can do that.
Madam Chair, when you're prepared,
Have
Madam
at
Chair.
it.
I move that we approve resolution R 2026-61 as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I mean, have we shopped this around? Like,
We have
no
not.
offense.
We have not, we've been very happy with the services provided, and we're able to utilize the cooperative procurement, vehicle to procure their services, so, we have not shopped this around.
I mean, don't you feel like that it's like in the best interest of the county to see what other financial institutions have to offer, what the going rates are? Not a attaboy, you've been doing a good job, you show up when we pay you to.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some pros and cons to it. I mean, having the continuity of a financial advisor, it's like-
Numbers are numbers.
Numbers are numbers, yes. From the numbers aspect, I would say yes, probably that would be a good idea to see, you know, what the comparable going rates are for these services. But from the other perspective, you know, I would say no. I think they provide the best value for the county, and
Yeah.
I don't know, I think,
I've got to say, since Jesse and I have been on the board, we've had numerous presentations, from you and Roland going way back on all manner of things. It's always been really good information. It's always been spot on, and I think that thanks to your help, we continue to be in a good financial position and available to take some financial initiative when we need to on behalf of the county. So,
I mean, if you were to proceed with approving this contract, we could certainly do that, when it comes around again.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? We'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Reed.
yes.
Mr. Bond.
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford.
Yes.
Mr. Linehan.
Yes.
Dr. Layton.
No. All right. Larkin property acquisition. Property purchase overview.
I'll try to step through this pretty quickly. Most of this is information that the board is familiar with. So just prior to Davenport's presentation on our financing options, I thought I'd do a quick overview of the purchase. Okay, on May 26th, the board authorized a pre-auction offer of $8.5 million for the purchase of the entire acreage that was to be auctioned in accordance with the terms of the auction itself. Only pre-auction offers on the 683 acres in total were considered. On June 9th, 2026, the board ratified the purchase contract that was executed on June 2nd for a total purchase price of $8,925,000, with staff having provided the required 10% deposit. And this is a map of the property that was purchased for those that weren't familiar in the public. Okay. A little bit of history. In 2001, the county commissioned a study of large undeveloped parcels along the Route 29 corridor for economic development purposes. And the Larkin acreage was identified as the best suitable option for economic development at that time. The county, in partnership with Amherst County, commissioned a study of developing the property for a technology and entrepreneurial center. The concept plans included a live where you work business incubator idea, providing for a county park and conference center, business support housing, and water and sewer infrastructure, including a water reservoir fed by Dillard and Town Creeks. And this depicts that concept plan. That particular water feature does not currently exist. It's just in concept. The board and the Larkin family at the time could not reach agreement on a purchase price of the property, which was supposedly in the neighborhood of about 10 million.
And this was done in what, 2001, right?
2001. Mhm. In 2021, 20 years later, the county again sought to acquire this property, which was now in the family trust with Wells Fargo Bank N.A. The county received permission to evaluate the property and worked with Timmons Group to do so. An appraisal was done at this time, which valued it approximately 1,000 acres at $6 million as is. And this is a summary written by former County Administrator Steve Carter, summarizing the benefits, or positives, and then some challenges that the property might have for economic development. So in 2022, which on the heels of the 2021 evaluation, at that time, the county was only able to purchase approximately 312 acres on the west side of Route 29, adjacent to the high school, middle school campus. The EDA assisted the county in issuing a 2022 bond anticipation note to complete this purchase, which will come due August of 2027. Refinancing this in conjunction with the current proposed east side financing is a consideration to be evaluated today with Davenport's advisement. To date, some master planning of these parcels has been for outdoor recreation purposes and water source evaluation. Some data points on the purchase. Again, the purchase price was $8.9 million on cash terms. We paid a 10% deposit of $892,500. So the balance due at the property purchase closing, which is anticipated to be at the end of August, is $8,032,500. The property use is to be determined with community input. Property will be evaluated for a variety of potential purposes, including but not limited to economic development, recreation, infrastructure, or a combination of uses. County has a two-pronged financing strategy for this property. We will use fund balance or cash on hand for the cash purchase in order to meet the property purchase closing timeline that was acceptable to the seller. We will then replace this fund balance or cash on hand with lease revenue bond financing. This financing fits within the county's current debt capacity of $15 million without requiring any additional general fund revenue or debt service to pay for this borrowing. So in order to determine the county's ability to meet the cash purchase terms of acquiring the property, the board, staff with the treasurer's advisement considered analysis of the county's anticipated cash balances and cash flow needs at the time. Major factors considered were maintaining a minimum 90-day cash reserve for operations, which we estimated to be about $4.8 million per month. And then the major cash flow requirements related to our FY27 debt service payments that were scheduled to be made in July, August, and October. The goal being to be able to replenish the cash outlay from the general fund balance as immediately as possible with the financing. As you'll see in a later slide, the cash closing is scheduled for around August 31st, and the financing is anticipated to close by the end of September. So we have a 1 month loan of general fund balance before the financing would replenish our cash. So in doing this analysis, we found that it looked like we would be in pretty good shape cash flow wise to be able to front this money and then return it once the financing was in place. This is a snapshot from our debt capacity analysis as of February 25th, 2026, prior to the property purchase. We have a debt capacity strategy that couples a consistent annual contribution from the general fund of $3,325,284. Retain any of the declining debt balances within the fund, and also have a debt service reserve that allows the county to afford additional debt without requiring additional funding. So as of February 25th, 2026, as mentioned before, the county's debt capacity or affordability was 15 million based on a 25-year term and a 5% rate. This means the county can take on this much more debt without any financial impact to its citizens. After this property purchase, the county should have approximately 6.1 million in remaining borrowing capacity without any additional contributions from the general fund. This slide points out that as of 6/30/2025, we held 4.6 million in debt service fund balance. And from that amount, about $17,077 is projected to be used in FY 27 and 28, leaving 4.1 million available for future use. Okay, so discussing a little bit about the financing schedule for the closing. We've had some preliminary activities. I did present this same presentation at a July 9th EDA meeting, since they will be involved in the financing. Today, the Board of Supervisors, you all are considering the plan of finance options as will be presented by Davenport, our financial advisors. Then the Board of Supervisors, hopefully you all will authorize staff and Davenport to issue an RFP for bank financing of a lease revenue bond anticipation note, which would be an interim financing. Then after that, by July 21st, Davenport would issue the RFP to local, regional, and national banking institutions, with those being due back by August 24th, 26th. Then we would be able to schedule Davenport to report to the board at the September 8th regular meeting. They would present a summary of the bank proposals. Hopefully the board would consider selecting the best option lender and adopting associated financing resolution and documents. Following that, the EDA would need to consider adopting the financing resolution and documents that they would need in order for the financing to be complete. That's the end. So unless there are any questions about anything here, we will move on to the second piece, which is Davenport's presentation on the financing options.
I do have hard copies for you, but you may already have yours. I think Candy already covered a lot of the information that is in this presentation, so I'll move through it quickly. I have had a lot going on today. So again, big picture, we're talking about this land purchase and how it's going to be financed. Similarly to the 2022 ban that we did, I'm going to call it a ban from here on out pretty much. Bond anticipation note. But we are looking at doing an interim financing just because the actual purpose of the land is not yet known. Trying to buy you all some time in order to determine what you want to do with the land so that when you permanently finance whatever project happens on the land, you can do the land at the same time and sort of streamline that. Yeah.
So we move at a glacial pace. I think that's evident.
It is.
So what is the true cost of doing that? If we never make a decision?
So we have not run those numbers here, but we can provide those to you. if
And
you'd
I
like
guess
to
at
see.
what point is it smart to do interim financing instead of just doing the whole enchilada? Because clearly we have problems making decisions.
Yeah, I mean, if that is something that you all would like to consider, we absolutely can take a closer look at doing a permanent financing right now. I think the reason we have talked about doing it this way is just that there, again, is not much certainty behind what is going to be done with any of this land. If it's just going to be sold in a few years, that I think is potentially on the table, maybe. So the point of doing the interim financing is to give you all some time to make that decision, but obviously you made the point that in 2022, the same decision was made to do this over an interim basis, and a final decision has not been made on that land either. So I think we can provide some more detailed analysis of what those look like, which sounds like you'd like to see.
I think it's fair to know the true cost of sitting around.
Yeah, and I think the reason we have not dug in on that is because we don't know how long it's gonna take.
Well, hope springs eternal.
I guess it is a little bit of optimism on everyone's part here. But yes, we can take a look at some different scenarios of what it costs to do the interim financing and then a permanent financing, the interim financing, letting it go all the way to maturity, or just doing a permanent financing today. I think the other consideration, which is already something that you're going to have to do, is when you do the permanent financing, if there is a project that is done on the property, that may also require a financing at that point. So there are some duplicative costs no matter how this is approached. So I'm gonna cover a few things just because there is one consideration here that I think we would like to discuss with you all before we move forward with anything. This page 3 is essentially covering what Candy has already covered. The only topic here that I want to point out is that what we are looking at here is doing this on a taxable basis. The debt that you all normally issue is done on a tax exempt basis. And that's for governmental purposes. The reason that bond counsel has recommended we move forward with a taxable issuance this time around is because of the potential economic development uses that are on the table for the land. If the land is used for economic development, it could not be funded on a tax exempt basis. So in order to leave the door open for that, this interim financing that has been discussed, we have been looking at doing it on a taxable basis, would be the plan. Okay, covered EDA would be the conduit issuer, similar to how this was approached in 2022. And we would be issuing a request for proposals that would go out in the next few weeks so that you all could make a decision at that September 8th meeting. I think no matter what, we could come back to you all and share some additional details on what the different scenarios would look like doing the interim financing versus permanently financing sooner. We could also request in that RFP that banks provide proposals for interim and long-term financing so that you can see what the options are from the banks as well. The other way to do a permanent financing would be through the Virginia Resources Authority, and that happens 3 times a year. They do a pool program. You all participated last year, and applications for that would be due in early August. So if that is something that we want to leave on the table, which at this point is very much still possible, we would be happy to help submit an application to it's a non-binding application. There's no fee associated with doing it. And we could submit that at the beginning of August so that you all would still be able to make the decision on September 8th to move forward with either an interim financing with a bank, a permanent financing with a bank, or a permanent financing with VRA. So those are all still on the table, and that's why we wanted to come talk to you in July too. Just make sure you were on board with the process, and obviously if you had any thoughts on changes to it, we are open to them. So goal is to come back to you on September 8th with those different options available to you. Page 4 just outlines what that interim financing, if that was the approach that we go forward with, what that would look like. The actual borrowing amount would be a little bit more than the purchase price of the land just to cover issuance costs. We had talked about doing a term of 3 to 5 years to give you all that time to decide what to do with the land. And if it is sold, that would be a very easy thing to just pay off the interim financing instead of paying off the permanent financing. EDA would be the actual issuer of the bond. They would not be responsible for the debt service. You all would be on a subject to appropriation basis. The collateral for the financing would be the land itself. And then we would ask for the flexibility to prepay it as quickly as possible with the only required repayment happening at maturity, which is what the setup is on that 2022 note. And that's what we get to on page 5 is that 2022 note for land that is adjacent to the land that you all are purchasing now. I think the original plan was for that to be governmental purposes. Parks and Rec, that kind of thing, water, sewer. So that one was done on a tax exempt basis. We have a couple options that we could move forward with on this one. Obviously, a decision needs to be made essentially in the next 12 months on the existing loan for this. The different options are to pay off the ban with funds on hand, which would be a hit to your fund balance, but is absolutely an option. We could permanently finance it with a long-term issuance, or we could either request an extension of the maturity or lump it in with this interim financing and get a potentially shorter than 3 to 5 years, but get a little bit more time for that one. So, we can undertake that process at the same time. It's not going to be much more effort to incorporate this into that RFP. If you all are planning to permanently finance it in the next 8 to 12 months, we can also just let this one sit. And then as you have more discussions on what you're doing with that land, if a project does evolve with the land, we could refinance that and on a long-term basis at that time. So that obviously comes with some risk if a project does not materialize in the next 12 months, then we are faced with the same decision and we have less time and potentially fewer options available to you. So that was what we really wanted to get your guidance on specifically at this meeting, is whether or not you would like to pursue anything with this 2022 ban at the same time as the financing for the 2026 purchase. And again, we can do the same thing with that, is where we sort of dual track this with VRA, and also request that banks provide some long-term options so that we can give you a full breadth of what that looks like to you.
What's the cost of sitting? Because we're paying interest only currently.
You are.
Which kills my soul. And so is it messy doing the tax exempt and not tax exempt, rolling it in together?
Not necessarily. If you're going to do this already in the next 12 months, if you're going to permanently finance it in the next 12 months, or you're going to need to get an extension of the maturity or something, it would be more efficient to do it now, because we're already doing this whole process. The process becomes slightly more complicated, but it's a incremental cost as opposed to initiating a whole separate process in the spring or summer of next year. I mean, there's also the consideration, it's not necessarily, I mean, obviously monetarily it comes into play, but you would have fewer options next year. This year, if we do try to do VRA, or at least put our name in for VRA, or we look at the banks now, that you have the flexibility to do any of those or do none of them. So that doing it now, I think, is a little bit more of a complicated process. It requires more information to be given to you, more decisions to be made in the nearer term, but you will have more options available to you. And it provides some certainty where we could get to next spring and not necessarily be in scramble mode at that point, but you're going to have to do something by next August. So it's really just a question of whether there's any confidence that something may materialize, or that you all may come up with a plan in the next 6 to 8 months
Right.
that this could be lumped in with at that point. Because then if we do this now, and then in 6 to 8 months you decide, all right, we are going to build a park on this land, we are going to do this reservoir, whatever the project ends up being, and you need to pay for that too, that becomes its own financing, which I think either way, that would become its own financing, and you can just knock this out now and not have to worry about rushing yourself on that process.
I have little confidence that interest rates will be lower.
Yeah.
I have little confidence whether they'll be lower or higher. Like it's
Yeah.
just literally day to day. The people are operating on the news of the day, and the news is very volatile right now. So no idea where things are going. markets looked a little bit better today, but it's still just, it's very volatile. So, I can't say that rates will be better now versus in the spring. We may look back in the spring and say, man, we really should have waited, but there's absolutely no way to know that now. So I would say that if you want to just knock this out at the same time, we can do that. Again, adds a little bit of a layer to what we're doing, but it's not like you're creating a whole second process that has to happen at the same time or anything.
Do we have the option to buy down points on the loan up front?
That's not something we normally negotiate with the banks because they're typically coming with their best proposal and they don't normally do that. I mean, it's something we can ask. It's not a common practice in municipal finance.
It's already so much better than private.
So I think, I definitely see benefits to being able to submit to the VRA pool.
Mhm.
That seems to me like something we should, definitely consider because it worked out well for us in the first go round and the rates tend to be good.
Yeah, and outside of going and getting your own credit rating and issuing bonds in the public markets, VRA is probably going to be the most cost-effective way for you to permanently finance all this stuff because VRA does that for you. They go and get credit ratings that are based on the state's ratings, which are very high, and they will go and sell bonds to the public markets, and they turn around and lend that to you at a slightly higher interest rate, but like 0.125 or 0.125. It's not 0.125. It's 12.5 basis points. So it is 0.125%. So it's a very low markup on what they turn around and sell it to, and you don't have to go get your own credit ratings, and it's a much simpler process for you all. So VRA is definitely a really good option. Again, if we're already asking banks for proposals, it's not on our end, it's not really any more difficult to ask them for short-term and long-term proposals. If we're already going to ask them for short-term proposals, obviously the banks are going to have to do a little bit more work to do their due diligence, but that's on them. If they would like to submit a proposal and lend to the county, then they will. So I think it's probably a good plan to move forward with the bank RFP process, expand that RFP to capture some permanent financing options, and then also submit an application to VRA so that we can make that decision, you all can make that decision in September, which that does work for VRA schedule. So VRA, just, we don't have that in here because we hadn't discussed that before, but VRA, they have their application due at the beginning of August. They do their process of vetting you throughout the rest of August. Wouldn't expect any concerns there. I think more of the questions are going to be about the land itself and what it's going to be used for and that kind of thing. And it's maybe not known at this point, so I think they'll be okay with that. But that's going to be what the conversations are really going to be about. And they'll give you a final decision at the end of August or early September, so that by the time we come back to you on September 8th, we'll have all the bank proposals. We'll know that VRA is good with it or not. And you all will get to make the decision at that point of whether or not you'd like to pursue interim financing, permanent financing, or nothing.
I feel if the cost is low, I think we should apply.
Yeah, and do they typically have a prepayment penalty of sorts like
So-
conventional banks do?
So with VRA, they have a 10-year period where you're not allowed to prepay the loan. So there's a 10-year lockout.
Even so, but will they? So they wouldn't relieve any portion of the land to be sold then.
So they wouldn't want you to do that, no, because you would be using the land as collateral. So it is an option, but that's where the interim financing comes into play, is you
Yeah.
have the flexibility,
Yeah, the flexibility to-
get rid of part of the land.
So they won't let you. So typically, a bank, if you want to offload a portion of land, they'll do a prorate and
Yeah,
then tell
and
you how
that's-
much money. So VRA doesn't do that.
VRA would not want you to do that most likely.
Huh.
So that would be part of the considerations that we would present to you in September is the banks could provide you a 15 or a 20-year interest rate, maybe longer. Banks, we have found in the last year or so, don't like to lock in an interest rate longer than 15 or 20 years. They don't like doing like a 30-year fixed mortgage that you might see.
Is VRA generating most of their money off of their balance sheet, or they buying bonds?
I mean, VRA is not in the business of making a profit.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
VRA
don't-
has to pay for their admin fees and their consultant costs, but the rest of it is really just for the benefit of local governments.
Okay.
So they're not trying to make a profit. They're just providing you all access to those public markets.
I'm interested in seeing the option presented, but I think that would be a consideration we'd have to strongly think about.
Yep, and we can, I mean, we'll be clear in our
Make sure we
comparison.
know that.
You
yeah.
know what the
Can't sell it.
considerations are.
Can sell it.
Yep. So,
Good question. Okay, any more questions for him?
I think we're just looking for, I mean, it sounds like the general consensus is do the RFP, submit an application to VRA. In the RFP, we'll ask for short-term on the new purchase, short-term financing on that, and long-term financing for both of the others, both of the land purchases. And then we'll also work on that VRA application that we can submit and get VRA rolling on that.
And Candy, that's all included under our 2026-62.
So I think you may wanna, we were just discussing that, you may wanna amend that language to include, VRA application and possible long-term financing options as well.
And that is for our 2026-62.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Madam Chair, are you prepared
Yes.
for a motion? And Chair, I move we approve resolution R 2026-62 as amended to include VRA application and, what was the second part? Long-term financing consideration.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. We'll roll call vote it. Why not?
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Dr. Lee?
Yes. Thank you. All right, public hearing to amend FY27 budget to include Larkin property purchase and DEQ consent order cost. Like how that's in one.
Resolution R 2026-63, authorization for public hearing. So in accordance with State Code Section 15.2-2507A, a public hearing must be held in accordance with 15.2-1427 for a budget amendment which exceeds 1% of the total expenditures shown in the currently adopted budget. This 1% threshold is currently $874,452. The hearing would include a proposed budget amendment for the following items: $8,925,000 for the Larkin property purchase, possibly $2.6 million based on the board's consideration of including financing of the 2022 Larkin property ban in the 2026 financing strategy, and $3.1 million for the anticipated loan to NCSA for WWTE DEQ consent order costs. As, of course, these three items would exceed that 1% threshold.
Madam Chair?
Any questions for Grace? Any discussion? I'm ready to hear a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we approve resolution R 2026-63 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Sorry, Amanda.
Sorry. Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mr. Leonard?
Yes.
Dr. Lee?
Yeah. Good lord. Okay. County Administrator's report. What a day.
Yeah.
Doing good, Madam Chair.
Thanks.
You did call me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just wanna make sure. All right, I'll start off first with, the expanded polystyrene or EPS prohibition that's now in effect, by the state. And that is pursuant to 10.1-1424.3. And this is the phase prohibition on the delayed use of EPS containers until July 1, 2026, which again is now in effect. All food vendors such as restaurants or similar retail food establishments are required to provide prepared food to a customer in something other than a styrofoam container. Localities may grant local exemptions or extensions for a period of 1 year if the business satisfactorily demonstrates that compliance would impose an undue economic hardship on the food vendor, i.e. there's no reasonable alternative to EPS containers in use by that food vendor, or compliance would cause significant economic hardship to the vendor. County administration has received one inquiry regarding an extension. We have not yet received a letter of request with undue hardship documentation. So just wanted you all to know that was in effect, in case any food vendors, constituents, approach you about that. Reporting back on the Gladstone speed limit reduction request, from 25 miles per hour to 15 miles per hour. We've researched the discussion surrounding the previous request and found that the board is concerned with requests coming from one or two individuals at the time. And in the interim, decided to have VDOT install Watch for Children signs at both ends of Gladstone Road, and then evaluate the effects of these on speeding in that area. Those signs were installed in October of 2025, and we're coming up on spring through summer, which is the busiest traffic timeframe, with people cutting over to the boat ramp over at Allen's Creek there. The board at the time also expressed concerns that a decision to reduce the speed limit in the area would set a precedent for other 25-mile-per-hour residential business districts. We looked at the possibility that VDOT could install a sign for additional fines for exceeding that speed limit. We checked with Robert Brown. He said there are certain criteria had to be met. With one of the main criteria is the street must have an operating speed that is at least 10 miles per hour over the posted speed limit. Mr. Brown noted that the last VDOT speed study on Route 656 in Gladstone revealed the 85th operating speed was 30 miles per hour, which would not beat the 10 mile per hour over the posted speed limit requirement. He said he'd be glad to discuss this further if county and residents would like to pursue any traffic calming on Route 656 in Gladstone. He did tell me today that VDOT would not be conducting any further speed studies in that area. So we would have to go by the most recent one.
So as a person that feels that traffic calming would be more effective than dropping a miles per hour, is the board willing to hear about them? Depending
Sure.
on cost and things.
Yeah.
Because I just don't foresee having a deputy parked out on a street where only,
I did have a brief conversation with the sheriff about maybe increasing enforcement in that area during this time of year, but you know, he said he was amenable to that, but that was nothing concrete as far as who would be down there, how long, you know,
I mean,
how often, how long.
let's
all
be
those things.
real, the only thing that slows me down is rumble strips. Or, you know, not rumble strips, but yeah,
Yeah,
you get it?
Yeah.
Okay. If he would like to talk to us about that at his next report, that would be great.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Sorry, I was coughing. All right. All right, in reporting back on the potential for a Nelson Augusta boundary line adjustment, at the June meeting, you all indicated your consensus, with Supervisor Lanahan's proposal. In looking at a boundary line adjustment between Nelson and Augusta County, this would move the line at the top of Wintergreen and top of Acme Mountain to better enable provision of EMS services to the Wintergreen properties, and then for inclusion of the whole Acton Mountain Hotel property to remedy the line splitting of the property between two counties. This would potentially enable its structural condemnation. I later got clarification, look at making the line consistent with the Blue Ridge Parkway at Wintergreen. And preliminary GIS maps show this movement in the Wintergreen area does result in the addition of properties within the county. We would need to do some further investigation to confirm how many and which ones. We're also working to confirm whether or not these properties are included in the RPC district and Wintergreen master plan. A reasonable line adjustment at the top of Acton Mountain needs to be further investigated and identified. And I have not yet reached out to my counterpart in Augusta to begin this conversation, but my understanding was just to gather information and report back at this point. So there are state code procedures for boundary line adjustments between two or more localities. That's found in 15.2, Chapter 31, Article 2. Relocation or change by agreement of boundary line between localities, and then adjustment by court. So there are two primary methods described for mutual agreement. One is an adjustment by voluntary agreement, or two, which is a court-ordered adjustment after an impasse. That's where the two counties agree on adjusting the line, just disagree on where. Other methods include annexation in Title 15.2, Chapter 32, which involves a complex court process. I did provide you the attached code sections or relevant code sections and an AI Google Gemini generated summary related to the different processes, and then some GIS maps of the areas in question. So I hope that provides some good information that you all heard.
So I have a question.
Sure.
So the Blue Ridge Parkway boundary, of course, is not consistent with the boundaries of Wintergreen. They're different, right?
Yes.
So are there Wintergreen properties on the west side of the Blue Ridge Parkway? Or are they
Yes,
all?
there are properties
are.
up there that are on the Augusta side of the park, of the county line.
But not past the parkway.
Not past the parkway.
Right,
No,
okay,
it's
the
like
question
right
was
there.
the Parkway.
Yes.
Right, okay.
No, they're like, you can see them though.
Yeah, you should be able to see that on these
Yeah.
maps that I provided. It shows you the boundary of the Blue Ridge Parkway versus the county line in that area. The first map is the Wintergreen area.
Ah, okay, thank you.
Yes. And then the second map kind of shows more toward Acton Mountain, shows Elk Mountain, Howardville Turnpike, and Swanville.
So what's the blue dot?
The
blue
blue
dotted
dash
line?
is the county line.
That's what I thought, yeah. Wow.
And we provide water, sewer, fire, rescue, and police to everything outside of that blue line.
So, yeah, I don't know how much it matters whether or not it's in the RPC or the Wintergreen Master Plan, but I think it'd be good to find that out,
Mhm.
so, working with Dylan on that.
Okay.
So, I guess, I'm struggling a little bit with at what point do I contact Augusta County and start these conversations to, we need to have more information or a more definitive idea of
I'll reach out and
the
talk
line towards
one-on-one
Acton
first.
Mountain first.
Sound like good? One?
I think you need to go talk to your neighbor.
Yeah. I'm gonna go out there and talk one-on-one first with them before I get you to reach out.
All right, if there are no other questions on that, I move on to the next item, which is, does have to do with Afton Mountain and the grant, an EDA grant that Augusta County is working on, with our support. They're the lead on this grant to develop the Delaney property on Afton Mountain. The latest update from Augusta is that the property owners are working towards a request for proposals for developers. Augusta is working closely with them to support them in these efforts and is continuing to seek other grant opportunities for developing that property. And that's the most I know about that at this point. Moving on, our Nelson Memorial Library repairs have been completed. We did have a second tractor trailer enter the parking lot and damage a tree while trying to turn around once they realized that wasn't a good fit for them. We're looking into signage that would restrict tractor trailer access to the parking lot, along with signage alerting them before they get to the turn. We've talked to VDOT a little bit about the signage possibly being in the right of way between the stoplight and the visitor center turn, so that they're aware before they even get to that turn.
Is that why they're pulling in there?
They're pulling in there kind of as a rest stop.
Oh.
Cause I think a lot of other visitor centers in the state, allow that. And we just don't have the space for it.
Well,
They get in, they
it runs
realize they
electronic
can't get
logs
back out
and
in a loop, and they have to back
it
up.
shuts the trucks down. Thank your federal government.
So, yeah, and that's how the library got damaged,
Tidbit.
the break of the library there. So we're working on, remedying that issue. On our DSS building project, as of our meeting on July 1st, the framing was 95% done. Plumbing and electric rough-in was almost done. Sprinkler and HVAC work was up next, as well as sheathing, brickwork, and timber framing. Building is expected to be dried in at the end of July. We had an IT pre-planning meeting and discussed the access and security, with the contractor on that. We will have a walkthrough schedule to look at the electrical outlet box placement, before those get finalized and in place with drywall. Wires can begin being pulled once the building is dried in, and we'll have a schedule update after the roof is on. Provided some project financials below. Our original contract with Coleman Adams was $6.6 million. Change orders to date amount to $150,450, which is about 2.25%. And our new contract to date with those change orders is still 6.8 million, but 6.835,249.18. We've paid them to date 2.2 million. If we do withhold 5% retainage at 119,000, and our contract balance, including both of those things, is 4.4 million. Most of the change orders, you can see some short description down here, but most of it was related to electrical changes that CVEC required for the transformers and those things. Our contract with PMA Architecture was 1.1 million. We've paid them 921,000 to date, and so their contract balance is about $275,405. In terms of the VRA financing aspect of it, our opening balance with them was $7,179,064. We've drawn down $1,754,955 to date, and we have 5.4 million in remaining balance to draw down on the project. Any questions on that? Moving on to our Cover the Caboose project. We're in process with the invitation to bids, as far as we've got things ready, but we are delayed until we have the necessary stamped engineer's drawings to be included. With this being a commercial structure, the engineer stamp project plans are required for building code compliance. We've received a couple of quotes for engineering services, and my understanding is that we've got one that that we're going to proceed with. And once we have that those specifications back, we can issue the IFB. We'll have a new timeline, once that's kind of nailed down with the, engineer and when we can get that IFB out.
So the engineer's just approving the plans that are being given to them. They're not designing anything. They're just approving or reviewing what's given.
I think they are doing a plan. They are doing a plan based on what we're saying we want.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have a sketch or drawing or a concept of what we're looking at.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not, yeah, that could be engineered stamped. So that's the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that will get going here quickly once we get those drawings. They should be fairly, they shouldn't be very complex, is
Yeah.
what I'm thinking, but should not have some wood, I guess. Lastly, our meals and lodging tax collection and entity tracking reports show that our lodging units went from 866 to 872 from last month. Our occupancy tax and meals taxes collected at the end of FY '26 are 2.8 million on TOT and 1.5 million on meals taxes. You all did receive, I believe, department and office reports for May and June. We should have more detailed animal control reporting beginning with the August report. So that'll be next time around. I think, is there any questions? Anything?
It's the thickest one yet.
Yeah, it's all the maps. That's just things.
All right, any questions for Candy? Thank you.
Thank you.
We were talking about class.
All right, board reports.
We had class to become certified board of supervisors. We are coming to the conclusion of that. We had a land use discussion. It's quite exciting. Camera got in trouble. Just kidding. But we're all learning at the same pace. I think one of the biggest topics, once again, this land use was data centers. I think that pretty much, Ernie, was that the same thing, monopolized your whole class portion?
It was, but I brought something else to them that wasn't about data centers. I'm trying to, gosh, I can't even remember what it was. Just to change
It's
the topic.
campground.
Yeah, it was the campground. Thank you. I told you that.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's been good. We've really enjoyed it.
We
We
got
have
one more class, right?
one more class and then we're all certified.
And you'll be official.
We will finally be official.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to miss that class in
So Ernie will
October.
not be certified.
So I don't know. I got the word that they might be able to figure out a way.
All
So
right,
without pulling any strings, I hope I can
all right.
get
Mr.
through
Lanahan.
it.
I have nothing.
Yeah.
Let's see, jail board, business as usual. They just gave a building update for the construction. Still 64 days behind.
Nice.
Yeah, everything's running pretty smoothly.
How are costs with that going? Generally,
We're, under cost.
What?
even though we had to adjust it massively.
Well,
Colonel Coomer, man,
Yeah.
making things happen. Planning commission didn't meet. So pass the baton.
I'll go through this pretty quickly. I went to the June Department of Social Services Advisory Board meeting, so I get a chance to meet the folks that are on the advisory board. Not much else to report outside of that. Did a tour of the Stewart property again with Jerry West and talked about the potential survey that's going to happen, and again, some bush hogging and trails and things like that. So although there was certainly nothing really planned, it was good to get out there again and to be in a vehicle that I didn't have to worry about the insect population out there. Went to the Juneteenth celebration at the Heritage Center, which was really well attended, and it was pretty great. Two JABA meetings, one a volunteer meeting where they celebrated all the volunteers, and the other was a joint board and advisory committee meeting. So got a chance to have all of our county advisory people there together. We had our regional housing partnership Zoom, and also we're getting interviewed for data for the
Oh, yeah.
the further analysis they're doing on housing needs
I forgot about
in the county. Jesse and I are a part of that. I'm the alternate for that. Let's see, went to the Nelson County Community Development Foundation focus group, which is the result of a planning grant that they got to be able to do a plan for the Callahill property. I guess they did a series of about 5 different focus groups, and I sat in on a couple of them. Let's see, BIP's commemoration was an amazing community event, just an amazing community event. Let's see. With the Service Authority, of course, we did have a Service Authority board meeting. There are weekly calls with the Service Authority staff, OVIVO and CHA, that has to do with all the things that are going on in real time. I was on 2 of those 3 calls last month. I'm trying to make them all so I can stay apprised of what's going on as it's going on. And I submitted some additions to an earlier call that didn't document too accurately what was actually said on the call, and got that straightened out with them, which is another good reason that I'm on the call, to make sure that the things that are mentioned in the notes actually happened or didn't. And I went to the EDA meeting where Candy gave her Larkin presentation, the one that we just saw, and it was, I guess, favorably received by the EDA, I would say. That's the Economic Development Authority.
Thank you. Mr. Parr.
Attended virtually the Social Services Advisory Council meeting. And as Mr. Reed said, not a lot to report there. And I was on vacation when EMS Council met. But one thing I do know, EMS Council and the different departments are starting to prepare for and trying to get information on is the 7 Stars upcoming festival, and looking forward to getting some numbers and information on what they expect, how big that's going to be, and what all will be required from an EMS standpoint. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. All right, it doesn't look like we have any appointments. So,
No appointments. If you know of anyone that may be a good candidate for MACA Board of Directors, North District on the Library Advisory Committee, I'm checking on Board of Building Code Appeals to see if the incumbent wants to continue serving. Other existing vacancies, Board of Zoning Appeals, we're still looking for an alternate for that position. Mr. Shemp indicated he was interested. I asked for an application, still pending, so that's why we have not brought that back. We need a person to serve on the Thomas Jefferson Area Community Criminal Justice Board, and a producer on the Ag and Forestal District Advisory Committee. So that's where we are.
I think you should go on there, Cameron, since you're on the jail board.
well, he has a whole month. You have a whole month to convince him. Okay, correspondence.
I've been corresponding with a lot related towards the property, as I maintain the messaging with this board that is for job creation, a very important part. I believe it will be a phenomenal fabric for that over the next many decades, and hopefully we can figure out some water pieces there. I have received some correspondence related to the Wintergreen wastewater treatment plant. Of course, we were all here for that today, and I do believe it is important that Service Authority put in a little bit more effort in hopefully giving some more answers to the community as well as this board. Other than that, I think that's pretty much all I got. Thank the fire department related towards the fireworks. I heard it was a phenomenal show and there was raving reviews about that, so.
Correspondence for, same way with the water treatment plant. Some more transparency there. Along with the 1% tax, that was,
You asked for that.
I know I did. Mhm. And I got it. Uh-huh. And that was about it.
Any correspondence y'all want to chat about?
I have nothing.
All right, any directives?
I think you did a fine directive for the service authority.
I appreciate you all letting me speak about that. I do hope that different representation comes.
Yeah,
And-
that was gonna be my directive too.
And I hope it to be someone that understands the implications of the words used and the tone of the delivery. It is a dicey situation. We of course are privy to more information, but the projection and what can be said could have been said better.
I'm happy to provide either a report itself or elaboration on it whenever. So you can certainly ask me anytime, call me up anytime. I'll let you know what I know.
I appreciate that. It is an opportunity for the public to hear it and hear our response. So I appreciate the one-on-one. However, it's important, and it was done poorly today, is what I'm saying. Different representation is what I'm asking for.
Well, I was volunteering.
I
For
understand, but I think in your capacity, I would find that odd, but I'm not against it, I guess. But all right, any other business? All right, I will take a motion to adjourn and continue till July 15th at 6 p.m. for a joint work session with Planning Commission.
Tomorrow. So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,